The chamber of the alien council was vast and glowing with silver light. Hundreds of leaders from different species gathered in high seats, their eyes fixed on a single glowing map that showed Earth at the center. The air was heavy with confidence and laughter, for they believed this day would be remembered as the day humanity finally broke. One counselor, a tall insectoid creature with sharp wings, raised his voice and declared that humans were weak. He said that Earth was divided, fragile, and unprepared for war. "Within hours they will collapse," he shouted, his many arms waving with excitement. The chamber roared with agreement, and the alien leaders pounded their tables in delight. They compared humans to children, brave in words but powerless in real war. At the far end of the hall sat an elder, an old scaled creature whose voice was rarely heard. He leaned forward and spoke slowly, his tone filled with warning. "You laugh today," the elder said, "but you do not understand them." The other sneered, asking what there was to fear from a small world like Earth. The elder's eyes narrowed and he whispered, "Humans rise fastest when cornered. They will not break in hours. They will rise in minutes." The chamber grew silent for a moment, but then erupted in laughter again. They dismissed his warning as the fear of an old mind. The vote was taken and the decision was final. The fleets would move against Earth. The plan was simple. Millions of warships would descend. Cities would burn. And the humans would surrender before the first day ended. The galaxy would see Earth fall, and the Council's power would shine brighter than ever. Far away on Earth, leaders watched the skies with calm faces. Satellites showed the alien fleets moving into position, filling the blackness of space with glowing lines of warships. People across the planet were afraid, but governments told them to stay strong. The human armies were quiet and the Air Force stayed grounded, as if Earth was waiting for something. No one outside the highest command knew the truth, that humanity had prepared for this moment for many years. Deep under oceans, inside mountains, and hidden within asteroids, secret facilities came alive. Engines roared in silence. Massive warships began to rise from the shadows. Pilots strapped into chairs, calm and focused, their hands steady as steel. Unlike the alien fleets, human ships were not flashy, but every bolt carried purpose, every weapon carried history. Humanity had fought wars among themselves for centuries, and they had learned to survive the impossible. In the council chamber, the alien leaders broadcasted the first attack. They wanted the whole galaxy to see Earth bow down. Screens lit up across worlds, showing alien destroyers entering Earth's orbit. The commanders laughed, calling it a hunt, not a war. They believed within hours the humans would beg for mercy, but back on Earth, in a silent command center, a countdown had already begun. Numbers flashed across screens and generals stood with steady eyes. 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes, the clock ticked down. Outside, alien cannons charged, glowing red as they prepared to strike. The people of Earth waited, hearts heavy with fear, but leaders still did not move. 2 minutes, 1 minute, the countdown reached its end. Across the planet, hidden silos opened, skies cracked with light, and oceans stirred as massive ships rose from the waves. Asteroids that once floated empty suddenly shifted, revealing hidden fleets that had slept for decades. In seconds, Earth was no longer defenseless, but surrounded by a wall of human warships. Alien commanders froze in shock as they saw ships that were never recorded, never expected, and never imagined. The first alien strike hit, but it was not Earth that burned. The human fleet intercepted the attack with technology no alien had ever seen. Beams of light tore through space, shattering enemy weapons before they reached their targets. The galaxy watched in silence, unable to believe what was unfolding. The war they thought would last hours had already changed in seconds. Inside the council chamber, the laughter was gone. The alien leaders leaned forward in disbelief, their voices trembling as they asked what had happened. The elder who had warned them closed his eyes and whispered, "The humans have risen, and your hours are already over." And so, the first strike ended not with the fall of Earth, but with the rise of a power the galaxy had never seen. The real war was only beginning, and humanity had just taken the first step into legend. The alien fleet stretched across the black sky above Earth like a wall of fire. Billions across the galaxy tuned in to watch, believing they were about to see humanity's final breath. Alien reporters spoke with confidence, announcing that Earth would not survive the first wave, the entire galaxy prepared to witness humiliation, but they had no idea that the stage was set for something greater. On the alien flagship, Commander Xylar stood tall, his armored body glowing under the lights. He had destroyed countless worlds before, but he saw this one as nothing more than another weak conquest. "All ships prepare to fire," he commanded, his voice sharp and cold. His officers smiled cruelly, believing this would be the easiest victory of their careers. They had no respect for humans, they only saw prey. But in the hidden command center beneath Earth's surface, silence filled the room. The countdown had ended, and screens showed human fleets rising from their secret shelters. Admiral Carter, an old veteran with calm eyes, lifted his hand slowly. "Wait," he ordered. "Not yet. Let them strike first." Generals exchanged glances but obeyed, trusting his wisdom. Above Earth, in cannons lit the void with burning light. Hundreds of plasma beams fell like meteors, streaking towards cities and oceans. People screamed as the skies turned red. The end seemed only seconds away. But just before the blast could touch the ground, human warships moved. Shields of shimmering energy appeared, swallowing the alien fire like waves against stone. The galaxy gasped, reporters stuttered, commentators fell silent. No one had ever seen such defense, not even the most advanced empires. The alien council's chamber filled with shouting, leaders demanding answers. "How did Earth build such power?" one cried. "Where did this technology come from?" The elder only bowed his head, whispering, "I warned you," Commander Xylar snarled, his pride bleeding into rage. "Fire again, harder, break them now," he roared. His ships obeyed, unleashing another storm, but once again, human defenses held firm. And then, for the first time, humanity answered. Admiral Carter lowered his hand and gave a single command: fire. In an instant, the dark sky erupted with light. Human warships unleashed weapons never recorded in galactic history. Rail cannons tore through alien shields. Beams of white energy split destroyers in half. Stealth ships appeared behind enemy lines, shredding carriers before they could react. Every alien officer froze, their jaws wide, their screens flashing with red warnings. The galaxy watched in disbelief as human fleets fought like predators, not prey. In minutes, alien ships that once filled the sky were burning wrecks. The broadcast showed explosions stretching across the stars. Worlds that had mocked Earth now fell into silence, their laughter turning into fear. The legend was beginning, and it spread faster than fire. On Earth, citizens who had hidden in fear now stood in awe. They watched their defenders strike with precision and courage. For the fear, in time, they saw themselves not as victims but as warriors. Children cheered, elders cried, and soldiers clenched their fists with pride. The whole planet felt united, not broken. Commander Xylar slammed his fists against his console. "This is impossible," he growled. "They were supposed to fall in hours." His officers stammered, unable to explain. Ships exploded around them, fleets vanished in light. The so-called easy victory had become a nightmare. Back in the council chamber, chaos reigned. Some leaders shouted to withdraw, others demanded reinforcements. But no one could ignore the truth. Humans had turned the tide in only minutes. The elder's voice echoed through the noise, calm and steady. "They do not collapse in hours, they rise in minutes, and now you see the cost of your arrogance." Still, the battle was not over. The alien armada was vast, and many fleets remained. Humanity had revealed its hidden strength, but the war was only starting. The council faced a choice: retreat and lose their pride, or fight and risk extinction. And deep inside the human command center, Admiral Carter whispered, "This was only the first strike. Now they will learn what it means to face Earth." The galaxy trembled, knowing the next moves would decide the future of every world. The war they thought would be short had already become legend, and humanity, the species once mocked, was now writing the first chapter of its unstoppable rise. The first battle had stunned the galaxy. What was meant to be a show of human weakness had turned into a storm of human power. Alien fleets that once filled the skies were now scattered wrecks, their fire swallowed by human shields and their pride broken by human weapons, but the real secret of Earth was still hidden, waiting for the right moment to rise. In the human command center, Admiral Carter stood calmly, his eyes fixed on the battlefield map. Red dots filled the screen, representing alien fleets still advancing. Though many had been destroyed, millions more ships pressed forward, their commanders desperate to rest, or their honor. The room was tense, yet Carter did not panic. He knew the true plan had only just begun. He turned to his officers, his voice low but steady. Phase 2, he said, and at once messages raced across secret channels. Hidden facilities buried in deep oceans and under polar ice woke from their silence. From the frozen wastelands of Antarctica, enormous hangar doors opened, revealing ships the size of cities. These were not simple warships. They were humanity's guardians, weapons built in silence through decades of sacrifice. Above Earth, the alien commander Xylar laughed when he saw the human fleet. They cannot win, he sneered. They are only stalling. But his laughter stopped when sensors began to scream. New signals filled his screens, dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of warships appearing where none were seen before. Asteroids cracked open, mountains split apart, and shadows rose from oceans like sleeping giants. Across the galaxy, watchers gasped, their voices trembling as they asked the same question. How did the humans hide all this? No spy, no scout, no informant had ever reported such power. Humanity had not only survived quietly, it had prepared with unmatched cunning. The joke was no longer on Earth. It was on the entire council who had underestimated them. Inside the chamber, the alien leaders screamed at one another. They were supposed to collapse in hours, shouted one. How do they field fleets larger than empires, cried another. The elder only closed his eyes and whispered, because you never watched them closely. You never saw the fire that burns in their history. Back in orbit, the battle exploded again. Alien ships charged, desperate to overwhelm Earth with numbers. But human stealth vessels slipped into their ranks unseen, planting weapons that detonated with silent flashes. Whole carriers split apart, fleets fell into chaos as human rail cannons ripped through their lines. For every human ship lost, 10 alien vessels vanished. Commander Xylar roared in frustration. Push forward, surround them, cut them apart, he ordered. But the more his fleets advanced, the deeper they fell into traps. Every move they made had been predicted, every weakness exploited. It was as if humanity had studied them for centuries. Admiral Carter's eyes never wavered. Target their command ships, he ordered. Break their will, not their numbers. Human gunners obeyed, and with pinpoint strikes, alien flagships erupted in flames. Without leaders, their fleets scattered like frightened animals. What was once a war now looked like a hunt, but this time the humans were the hunters. On Earth, the people who had feared destruction now watched the skies with pride. Every explosion was proof that their world was not weak. Children clutched their parents and whispered, "We are safe." Soldiers raised their fists as human warships lit up the night like stars. The planet that was meant to fall in hours now stood unshaken. In the alien flagship, Xylar's officers begged him to retreat. "We cannot win," they cried. "They are stronger than we imagined." But Xylar's pride would not allow surrender. He believed victory was still possible if he sacrificed everything. "Send all ships," he commanded. "Burn Earth to ash." The galaxy held its breath as millions of alien ships moved in unison. The council chamber shook with fear, for even they saw the madness in his eyes. But Admiral Carter only smiled faintly, his hand resting on the command console. "Now," he whispered, "show them the true power of Earth." A signal pulsed through hidden networks, awakening the final layer of humanity's defense. From deep space, far beyond the orbit of Earth, entire stations uncloaked, massive rings armed with weapons capable of shattering moons turned their sights on the alien fleets. For the first time, humanity's true arsenal was revealed to the galaxy. And as the energy built, the via Ode itself seemed to tremble. The countdown began again, not for Earth's fall, but for the alien fleet's destruction. The story of humanity's rise was only growing stronger, and the galaxy began to understand that the real danger was never that humans would collapse. The real danger was that once provoked, humans would rise faster, fiercer, and stronger than anyone could imagine. The galaxy had seen many wars, but none like this. What began as a campaign to crush humanity had now turned into the Council's nightmare. Alien fleets that once stretched across the stars were burning wrecks, and Earth was still standing. Yet the true storm had not even begun. From the hidden defense rings beyond Earth's orbit, light started to gather. Each ring hummed with power, energy surging like rivers of fire. Admiral Carter's eyes narrowed as the final systems came online. He raised his hand, steady and calm, and gave the order. Engage the orbital lances. In an instant, the void exploded with beams of light. They cut through space like blades, slicing through entire fleets in one strike. Alien dreadnoughts that had taken centuries to build were torn apart in seconds. The galaxy gasped, voices falling into silence as the impossible became reality. The council chamber shook with cries of disbelief. Commander Xylar's flagship shuddered under the shockwave. His officers screamed as ships vanished from their screens faster than they could count. Xylar's pride broke into rage, his voice cracking as he shouted, "Push forward, we are not beaten, send everything, all at once." But his command sounded less like power and more like desperation. The alien armada surged again, millions of ships moving in unison. They believed sheer numbers could bury the humans, but humanity had prepared for this moment for decades. Traps hidden in asteroid belts detonated, tearing apart entire clusters of HFY. Nemi ships, stealth bombers, emerged from shadows, striking at supply lines and crippling fuel carriers. The war was no longer a battle, it was a masterpiece of human strategy. Every alien move was predicted, every counter already waiting. It felt less like defense and more like a story humanity had already written. For the first time in history, the galaxy saw humans not as survivors, but as masters of war. On Earth, civilians stared at the skies as alien fire lit the night. They expected to see cities burning, but instead they saw human ships rising higher. Pride filled their hearts. Fear turned into courage. For the first time, they believed in something greater than survival. They believed in victory. Inside the council chamber, chaos spread like wildfire. Leaders shouted at one another. Some demanded retreat. Others screamed for reinforcements. But none could ignore the truth that their strongest fleets were being torn apart in minutes. The elder stood again, his scaled hands resting on the table. "I told you," he said, "humans are not prey, they are fire." Back on the battlefield, Admiral Carter's voice remained calm. "Focus fire on their command structure," he ordered. Human weapons turned to target alien flagships, one after another. Glowing explosions filled the void as commanders fell. Without leadership, alien fleets wavered, their formation broken. Panic spread among enemy ranks. Some tried to retreat, but human interceptors blocked their path. Others attempted desperate charges, only to be cut down by precise rail fire. In every direction, alien pride crumbled into fear. The Great Armada was collapsing not in hours, but in minutes. Commander Xylar clutched the edges of his console, his voice trembling. "This cannot be," he muttered. "No species rises this fast." But his officers stared at him with hopeless eyes. They knew the truth, the battle was lost, and their war was already over. Still, Xylar's pride would not let him surrender. "Prepare the doomsday weapon," he ordered, his voice dark, a massive cannon hidden within. His flagship began to glow. Its power was designed to wipe out entire planets. If he could not win, he would burn Earth with him. But Admiral Carter was already watching, already waiting. "Target their core reactor," Carter commanded, his tone sharp as steel. Human warships locked onto the flagship, unleashing a storm of fire. The alien cannon glowed brighter, seconds from release. But then the human strikes connected, ripping the flagship open from within. The weapon died in silence. Its fire swallowed before it could burn Earth. The galaxy erupted with shock. The invincible fleet had been shattered, its pride broken, its weapons silenced. For the first time, the Council felt true fear. Humanity had not only survived, it had taken control of the war. The turning point was here, and nothing would ever be the same again. The silence after the flagship's fall was louder than thunder. Across the galaxy, entire worlds sat frozen, watching the impossible unfold. The Council had promised a swift victory. They had promised that humanity would collapse within hours. But now their fleets lay in ruins, and Earth stood unbroken. News spread like fire, carried by survivors fleeing the battlefield. Alien captains whispered stories of human ships rising from oceans and mountains. They spoke of weapons that sliced through dreadnoughts like paper, of shields that swallowed firestorms, of strategies that predicted every move. Each tale made humanity grow larger, greater, and more terrifying in the minds of the galaxy. On distant colonies, children who once mocked humans now shivered at their name. Merchants refused to trade near Earth's borders, afraid of angering the new power. Even empires that had stood for millennia began to question their safety. If humans could destroy the strongest fleets in minutes, what hope did anyone else have? In the council chamber, panic spread faster too. Hand reason, leaders shouted over each other, some demanding peace, others crying for war. But the truth was clear, the council's authority was breaking. The galaxy had seen their weakness, and the galaxy had seen Earth's strength. For the first time in history, fear of humans outweighed fear of the council. The elder rose again, his voice heavy with sorrow. You laughed at them, you mocked them, you ignored my warning, he said. Now their fire has burned your fleets, and soon it will burn your pride. His words cut deep, but none dared to silence him now. Every leader in the chamber felt the weight of failure pressing against their chest. Back on Earth, humanity did not celebrate yet. The skies were still filled with enemy fleets, though broken and scattered. Admiral Carter stood firm, his eyes cold as steel. He knew the battle was far from finished, but he also knew the galaxy was already changing. This was no longer just a war for survival. It was a war for respect. Transmit our message, Carter ordered, and signals raced across the stars. A single voice echoed in 1,000 languages, carried to every world. We do not seek war, but we do not fear it, the voice declared. We do not bow to tyrants. We do not surrender to threats. We fight because we must, and when we fight, we finish. The words struck like thunder, and the galaxy listened in silence. On alien worlds, people whispered the message in fear and awe. Some called humans monsters, others called them protectors, but all agreed on one truth. Earth was no longer weak. It was now the rising fire that could not be contained. Commander Xylar's few remaining ships tried to regroup, but morale was shattered. Discipline was gone. Officers muttered of retreat, of surrender, of abandoning the war. Xylar raged at them, but even his fury could not erase the terror in their eyes, for they had seen the truth up close, and they knew they had no chance. The council faced the same truth, their empire fear was crumbling. They had built their power on intimidation, but now that weapon belonged to humans. Worlds that once obeyed the council out of fear now questioned their rule. If Earth could defeat them, why should anyone bow to them again? The cracks in their power spread like fractures in glass. Still, some council members refused to accept it. They cannot be allowed to rise, one shouted. They must be crushed completely. But another answered, we already tried, and we were the ones crushed. The chamber fell silent as the weight of those words echoed. For the first time, the council felt powerless. Back in the command center, Admiral Carter studied the map of enemy movements. Fleets were scattering, slipping into retreat. Yet he knew this was not the end. Desperation would make them dangerous. They will try again, he whispered. They will come with more fire, more hatred. His hand tightened on the console, but his eyes burned with determination. We will be ready, he said, his voice steady. And when they come, the galaxy will see the truth once more. Humanity had turned fear into a weapon, and now that weapon spread across the stars. The war had begun as a test of survival, but it was becoming something greater, a battle that would decide not only Earth's fate, but the future of the entire galaxy. The galaxy was no longer laughing at Earth. The same leaders who mocked humanity only days ago now whispered in fear. The fleets that had once been symbols of power were ashes scattered across the stars. Yet the war was not finished, and the question that burned across every world was simple. Would humanity show mercy, or would it take revenge? In the council chamber, silence ruled the air. Screens showed fragments of destroyed fleets drifting in space. The leaders stared at the images with wide, trembling eyes. Their empire had been built on fear. But no, fear belonged to the humans. For the first time in living memory, the council was no longer the predator, but the prey. The elder rose slowly, his voice low but sharp. You thought them weak, you thought them divided, and you thought them blind, he said. But they were none of these things. They were waiting, they were watching, and they were preparing. The counselors could not answer. Their pride had shattered along with their fleets. And still, outside, the human armada grew stronger, ships assembling in perfect silence. On Earth, Admiral Carter stood at the center of the command hall. The galaxy was listening. Every world, every empire, every soldier. He knew his next words would shape not only the war, but the future of humanity. He leaned forward, his voice steady, his eyes cold. "Transmit the ultimatum," he ordered. The message spread through the void faster than fire. To the Council and to all who follow them, it began. "You thought Earth would fall in hours, but you have seen the truth. We ended your war in minutes. We will not hunt the innocent, we will not enslave the weak, but we will not bow to tyrants. If you come again, if you raise your hand against us once more, we will break you completely." The words echoed like thunder across every screen in the galaxy. Some alien leaders trembled, others clenched their fists, but none could ignore it. Humanity was not begging for peace, and it was not thirsting for conquest. It was drawing a line that no one would dare to cross again. For the first time in history, Earth's voice carried more weight than the Council's. Commander Xylar, wounded but still alive, watched the broadcast from the ruins of his ship. His pride was ashes, his fleet destroyed, his name disgraced. Rage boiled in his veins, but even he could not deny the truth. The humans had beaten him not with luck, but with power, strategy, and will. He whispered to himself, "They will rule us all if we let them." In the council chamber, the debate began once more. Some shouted for surrender, others screamed for one final war, but deep inside they all knew the truth. Another war would not end in hours, it would end in extinction. The elder's voice broke the argument with quiet finality. "If you test them again, you will not survive the lesson." Back on Earth, civilians listened to the ultimatum with pride. The world that had once been mocked was now the center of the galaxy's attention. Children repeated the words. "We finished the war in minutes." Soldiers stood taller, families wept with relief, and the whole planet felt stronger than ever before. This was not just survival, this was respect. Yet Admiral Carter knew mercy was more powerful than destruction. To crush the Council completely would make humanity a tyrant, but to offer peace would make humanity a legend. "Transmit again," he ordered. "Make sure they understand. We fight only when forced, but when we fight, we end it." The galaxy trembled with uncertainty. Would the humans enforce peace through fear or guide it with strength? Every empire waited for Earth's next move. The balance of power had shifted forever, and the Council, once rulers of the stars, now waited in silence for humanity's judgment. The galaxy had changed forever. Worlds that once laughed at Earth now spoke its name with respect and fear. The Council, once the unchallenged ruler of the stars, now sat in silence, broken by its own arrogance. The war was over, not in hours or days, but in minutes, and humanity stood unshaken. Admiral Carter looked out at the star map glowing before him. Red dots of enemy fleets had vanished, replaced with empty void and silence. His officers waited, expecting him to declare victory, but Carter's voice was calm and heavy. "This is not the end. This is only the beginning." Across the galaxy, the human ultimatum echoed. Some empires prepared for revenge, others begged for peace, yet none dared to send Earth again, not after seeing fleets fall like sand in a storm. Fear alone could have made humanity a tyrant, but Carter knew fear was not enough to build a future. In the ruins of the council chamber, leaders argued bitterly. Some demanded to strike again, others pleaded to surrender, but their voices no longer carried weight. The galaxy had seen their weakness, the galaxy had seen Earth's strength, and the balance of power had shifted forever. The elder stood once more, his presence commanding silence. "You have witnessed the truth," he said slowly. "You feared humanity's fall, but the real fear was always their rise." His words spread across the chamber, cutting deeper than any blade. Even the proudest leaders bowed their heads, unable to deny it. On Earth, celebrations filled the streets. Children cheered under skies still glowing from battle. Families embraced, knowing they had survived what no one thought possible. But more than survival, they felt pride. For the first time, humanity was not a victim, but a guardian of the stars. Admiral Carter addressed the world. His words carried to every city, every home. "We did not fight for conquest. We did not fight for glory. We fought for survival, and we fought for respect," he declared. "We will not seek war, but if war comes to us again, the galaxy already knows how it will end." The people erupted in cheers, their voices rising like thunder. Earth had spoken, and the stars had listened. Far beyond Earth, alien survivors carried stories of what they had seen. They spoke of human warships rising from oceans, of secret weapons hidden in shadows. They told of fleets destroyed in minutes, and of a species that fought with unbroken will. Each story grew with every retelling, turning into legend. And soon, even those who had never seen the battle began to believe. Generations later, the tale was still told. They called it the war that ended in minutes. Children of alien worlds listened with wide eyes, asking if the humans were truly that powerful, and their elders would only wit. Spear, yes, and perhaps even more. The legend had become greater than the war itself, but for humanity, the war had left a deeper truth. They had faced extinction and turned it into triumph. They had proven that respect was earned, not given, and they had shown the galaxy that mercy was stronger than fear. It was not victory alone that made them powerful. It was restraint. Admiral Carter stood once more before his people. He did not speak of warships or weapons. He spoke of unity, of courage, and of what it meant to stand together. They said we would collapse in hours, he reminded them, but we rose in minutes, and now the stars will remember it forever. The galaxy watched, and for the first time it did not see humans as prey. It did not see them as rebels or fools. It saw them as something far greater, a fire that could burn, but also a light that could guide. The legacy of Earth was no longer survival, it was destiny, and the Council, broken and silent, could only accept it. Thus ended the war, but it was also the beginning. The rise of humanity, the guardians of the stars, the species that turned laughter into silence and fear into respect. The ones who finished in minutes what others thought would last hours, and the ones who would never again be underestimated.